Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the show. My name is Avrum Rosensweig, and I'm here with my colleague and my friend, Rabbi Shlomo Gemara. How are you, Rabbi?
Baruch Hashem, everything is good. Waiting for Purim next week. How about you?
Also, very, very good. And I want to mention to our listeners and our viewers that the show we're doing is called Torah in Real Time. And this week we will be discussing Parshat Tetzaveh. Now, in light of what you asked about, what you stated about Purim, I brought along my father's Megillah.
Wow.
And it's very beautiful. It's very, very old. But I use it every Purim when I'm listening to the Megillah. But there's something else that I wanted to point out, Rabbi, and I wonder what your thoughts are on this. This is the container for the Megillah.
I have a very similar one. It's like
do you really?
On the outside, very, very similar, yeah.
This I received from my dear friends, Motel and Doreen Reutman. Motel is my chavrus on Monday night. And I was thinking to myself that community can be found in gifts, you know? She saw that I needed a container for the Megillah because I had one, but it was very flimsy. And so she went out and bought me one. So every year when Purim comes around, I think about that extension of love and generosity and how she and I are part of the same community, how Motel's part of the same community. And it really strikes me as something very warm and lovely, you know?
Absolutely. My Megillah was given to me by my wife when I was, I believe, 40 years old. This was a gift, or 50 years. Yeah, and gifts have a very special meaning, way beyond the item that you get. And it's a wonderful way to remember things for a long time.
Are you a gift giver?
Not so much, I must say. Not so much. I always admire people who give it like wholeheartedly.
Yes, me too.
And they always think about what is the right gift to a person. So I know that I have to give a gift, and I really appreciate sometimes special service, hosting. But I would not go to the lengths to think, okay, this person, what he really needs, and to call someone and to say, what do you think he would appreciate? And there are people who are doing it. Unfortunately, it's not me. And it's chaval.
It is chaval. I actually do that, Rabbi. As an example, I have a very dear friend, Dalia, who has started baking challahs. And I don't know if you understand the culture, if you know about the culture of baking challahs, but it's almost like a mystical thing.
We do it almost every week. You know the story about the fly on the ear of the elephant, and it tells him, look how much dust we make. So when I say we make chalot, it means like I stand there, looking how my wife is braiding the buns and the challah.
But my point was that I recently gave her a roller, where you roll the dough out. And I believe it is from my sister's house, Etty, who used to live here in Toronto. Years ago, I cleaned out her house because she made Aliyah. And I'm pretty sure that's where it comes from. Now, gift giving is a big deal in the Torah as well. As an example, Eliezer, right? He gave gifts. Are there other examples you can think of gifts in the Torah?
Yaakov sent to Esav. But I would say that here is the difference. Our sages say that everything that Eliezer brought with him was a hint for future major events in Am Yisrael. So he gave her something with Asara Shkalim. It's like representing Aseret HaDibrot. Now, did Eliezer thought about Aseret HaDibrot at this point? maybe not. But sometimes you look at gifts backwards and you say, this was something actually like more than I appreciated even at this time. And with Esav, I think it was much more like impressing with the wealth that Yaakov had, and he could not expect something like this, that Yaakov would be successful. He was a yeshiva guy, and he came after many years as a very wealthy person. So it was more striking him with the wealth, not specific the gifts. Avram, it said that he sent the children of Hagar to the east and gave them matanot.
Yes.
It said that in the Makot of Mitzrayim, the Egyptians gave things to Bnei Israel, just leave as soon as you can. So the plague is getting over. There is a mitzvah to give a gift.
There is a mitzvah.
Yeah, there is a mitzvah by Eved Ivri, a person who was your Hebrew slave. When he ends his term, there is a mitzvah that is called in the Torah ha'anaka, rewarding him, showing him the respect you have to him. He, after all, was not just like cheap labor, but it was a human being in your home, and you appreciate what he did, and you want to ensure him with a new future to start well his second chapter in his life. So there is a mitzvah of ha'anaka, of giving him. Obviously, we have matnot keuna. We have 24 ways to reward the Kohanim and to give them matanot. But again, this is more about sustaining them. But we are talking about different matanot, something of paying attention. For example, you gave me a beautiful painting of the Kotel. This is very thoughtful, beyond the incredible artistic value of the picture. More important is the kavanah, the intention and the thought about it, which is even more appreciated.
Thank you. Many years ago when I was running Via Hafta, the humanitarian the humanitarian organization I started, we had an office downtown, and down the hall from us was the future foreign minister of Canada. When he became foreign minister, I asked my staff to go and buy some.
Who was he?
Bill. You know what? I was hoping you would.
Allen, someone? No, it was not.
No, it was many years ago, 25, 30 years ago. I'm sorry, I forget his last name. But I asked my staff to go buy a piece of Judaica. And they asked me why. And I said, because Vayakam Melech Hadash, there's a new king rising up. And one day he could be sitting with Yasser Arafat, of which he ultimately did, by the way. And I want him to remember the Jewish people. We invited him into our office. We presented him with a beautiful piece of Judaica. And we said to him, we're representing the Jewish people today. And we ask that you remember us and that you see the beautiful side of the Jewish people. And indeed, he was very thankful for it. So there was another sort of motivation behind giving a gift.
Yeah. And when you mention it, I remember a story. I was once on Vada Rabbanim of Toronto, and there was a new mayor. I can't remember. Maybe his name was Miller. Yeah, I'm talking about like
Miller.
Years ago. Yeah, there was a person like this.
Yes.
And he met all the Rabbanim of the shuls. It was, I think, September, and the Vada Rabbanim gave him like a present, like a shofar. The guy thought, like, I run a city of 3 million people. What's the problem to blow a shofar like? And he tried to blow a shofar. Let me tell you, Avrum, I would hire him 10 times as the mayor of Toronto and not the shofar blower in shul. It was not that successful. Hopefully, since then he exercised and he's better now. But at the time, it was. So sometimes if you have a gift, don't try it, immediately.
Don't buy someone a trumpet. It's interesting, by the way, that you talk about a shofar. Shofar is a very beautiful gift. A number of years ago, I bought a Yemenite shofar, which is the long squiggly ones. They're
Yes,
very
yes.
beautiful. And I gave it to my doctor. And I said to my doctor, "You're always there for me. You're always caring. You always make yourself available. I never have to wait days and days and days to get into him." And I presented him with this shofar, and he was very, very grateful.
Listen, it's a beautiful instrument. There are people who knows how to play it very, very well, although it's
Yeah.
very primitive. It's not a trumpet or something, but yeah, it's a very impressive voice.
Rabbi,
Yes.
a lot of people tell me that they're very excited when you talk about your childhood growing up in Israel, and I wanted to bring that home a little bit in our show today. Ask you, what do you remember about Purim as a child in Israel?
Eh, One of my first childhood memories was when my parents, I believe it was the year 63 or 64, believe it or not, that I still remember it, took me to Tel Aviv to Allenby Street for something that was called Adliyada. Adliyada was like a parade, a very nice one, that people from, I believe, kibbutzim or maybe people from Tel Aviv, they were dressed up. It was like on wagons that went through Allenby, which was the main street of Tel Aviv at the time. And of course, I did not understand anything, but I do remember that my father, Zichrono Livracha, put me on the, ala barzelim, on the fences of the street, so I can see something. And I did see, and I was very excited about the horses. Listen, I was in Tel Aviv. I did not see horses. I was not very impressed, apparently, with the costumes and the art, but I remember like I was so impressed by the sus, by the horse. So this is one of them. And then listen, it's a very joyous day in Eretz Israel. Almost everyone is going with a costume. I remember my parents before Purim, it was a big thing. They always dressed me up and thought about all kind of sophisticated ideas. Um, yeah, I have some nice pictures from this
Do
time.
you get dressed up now?
Less, but I try. I try. I cannot release at this point what I'm going to dress like this Purim, especially when I'm like an year in Avilut. But yeah, I try something, modest, not extravagant. Last year, I was the Schwarze Wolf. Did I tell you the story about the Schwarze Wolf?
Yes, you've told us that story. It's a wonderful story. Yeah,
Yeah, and I even got like in school nomination for award or something like. Yeah, but I don't. I maybe it's one of the signs that you are getting older. You are less excited maybe about it.
perhaps,
But my
perhaps.
children is a big thing, Avrum, big thing. I have my children in Eretz Israel today, like, wow, they send us pictures. Wow, they are very creative and they have all kinds of ideas. If you would tell me before, I would make sure to send you some of my picture,
Yeah, I'd love to see them.
my grandchildren picture.
I'd love to see them. Rabbi, you made a very interesting point before about you being an Nevelos, you being a mourner this year. Um, does that trump the idea of happiness and getting dressed up on Purim?
The answer is yes. Interesting thing. Um, you would expect that as time will pass, and I'm already about half a year after my father, Alav Shalom, passed away, the things will get easier, right? Like emotionally, and it's not.
Yes.
It's a difficult year, and you actually every holiday bring memories and bring thing to think about. And just last year in Purim, I talked to my father, and now it will never happen again. Um, so yes, it uh, does infuse into the Simcha of Purim or Shabbat or Yom Tov. At the same time, I think one of the greatest thing in the Jewish traditions is set rules, even when to be happy and when to be sad. Some people would like to continue the Shiva maybe a month, but the halacha is very clear. After 7 days, you have to leave home and you have to continue with your life. And it's not easy. And when you are the happiest person and you got married, you have Sheva Brachot, 7 days, and not even one day after. I mean, you can be happy, you can treat nicely your wife, but it's not going to be celebrated like in the 7 days of the chuppah. So even things which are emotional are well regulated by the halacha. And sometimes it might be annoying because how the halacha can dictate your feelings.
Yes.
But the answer, once it put into like a framework, I don't know. As a human being, I find it a more helping you to cope with the emotional stress that you have. So on Purim, on one hand, it's still a year, but at the same time, I do want to feel some of the simcha of Purim. So it's going to be subdued. It's not going to be the same as a regular year, but still, I don't want to give up. I will come to school with a costume. It's not going to be elaborate one. It's going to be something just to remember. I don't want to bring my grief to the school, to other students. I do believe that students should see the world as a happy place, although in their life also there are difficulties. But I think education is about being optimistic, about seeing the light, about seeing the positivity in life. So yes, it's going to be challenging.
Are any of your students or colleagues, are they aware of the fact that you're an Avel? Do they ask you about it?
Sometimes I have to remind people.
Yes.
I have to remind the people, they ask me if I'm going to the contest of costume. And I said, I will. This year I'm not. And I explain why, which is also, I think, very important. Education is not just in the classroom, but you meet people and you tell them about it. And they say, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
How is your mother doing, Rabbi?
Baruch Hashem, I just spoke to her an hour before we spoke, and she seems to cope.
Do you have lengthy conversations with her, or are they sort of short mother conversations?
Very rarely long ones. Very rarely. It's. I don't think that my mom would like to have like long discussions, philosophical ones. If I have something to ask her, I will ask. I will share with her. She's a very smart lady, and always she has something to say. Usually, like something in Yiddish. It's interesting that my mother always end the discussion like you end our podcast always. Be strong and healthy. Sei stark, sei gesund und stark.
Are you fluent in Yiddish?
My life story is like this. My mother lost her parents in the Holocaust.
Yes.
Before they went to Auschwitz, in one of the last deportations from Belgium, her parents, in a heroic act, I believe, left her with some resistance in Belgium that took care over little children. And at the end of the war, Belgium was conquered quite at the end of the war. So a few months later, when Belgium was liberated, my mother and their two brothers were released from this Christian school or dorm. I don't know exactly what it was. And she went to Israel where her grandparents lived. Her grandparents came to Israel before the war. They lost all their children in the war, but they were survived, and their grandchildren, they had 3 grandchildren that were survived. Dozens of others were just perished in the Holocaust. So I grew up until the age of 7 with grandparents who came from Odessa, and they spoke to my mom in Yiddish. I was exposed only to Yiddish. When I spoke to them, they did not speak Hebrew. So yes, I understand Yiddish. I can read Yiddish from time to time. I even try to practice a little bit my Yiddish. I cannot speak in Yiddish, unfortunately. But I have like a warm place in my heart to the Yiddish language. Um, and when people around me talk in basic Yiddish, I do understand totally. But Yiddish is a very rich language, and when it comes to the hard words and the, I would say even poetic words in Yiddish, because
Yes.
Yiddish is a very poetic. It was not just a language. Lots of Jewish wisdom went into the Yiddish, like the expression, the beauty of the words. I always wanted to know more about the Yiddish because the richness of the language. Not sure that it will happen, but from time to time, I actually use the AI and I tell him, teach me like few new verbs, and he give me like a story, a maise, and I try to learn.
When I was growing up, my parents, my father was a rabbi in Kitchener, my mother was a rebbitzin, and when you're a rabbi in a small shtetl like that, you have to vent. And I remember there were particular Yiddish phrases that my parents would share, sometimes about the people in their shul. And there was one rabbi that I remember. I don't know if you know this or not. Wachs wie a Zibbel mit ein Kopf in Drert.
Say it again.
Wachs wie a Zibbel mit ein Kopf in Drert. You should grow like an onion
People is the onion.
with your head in the ground.
Ah.
It was a curse. I remember that one specifically. Rabbi, I just want to diverge before we launch into Torah in real time. I just interviewed Israel's ambassador to the United States, Michael Yechiel Leiter.
That's
And
quite amazing how you got like this is like a top interviewee.
so we're an interesting people, Rabbi, because we're very small, right? We're like mishpucha. So my mother, after my father passed away, went to Israel, and she was approached by Yechiel Leiter, who was an activist in Hebron, and he was a real activist. And he asked my mother if she would contribute towards donate money towards the Shari Tzedek Hospital in Hebron. And my mother said yes, in my father's memory. Anyways, long and short of it, they stayed in touch, and my family knows Yechiel Leiter and his family. And I asked a friend of mine, Joey Freed, who's a lawyer here in Toronto,
I know,
also
sure.
a friend with Yechiel Leiter. You know Joey?
Yeah, of course.
I asked him if he would ask the ambassador if I could interview him. He did ask him, and the ambassador said yes.
Wow.
And I would just tell you one thing before we dive into the parsha. I asked him about his son Moshe, who was killed in Gaza early on. And I said, tell me something about Moshe. What was he like? He said, there's a lot to tell. He was a very special person. But he said, I will tell you one thing. He said, when my son was doing tiranut, which is basic training, I asked him, I said, tell me, Moshe, how is it that you're able to walk so far, so much weight on your back? And he turns to his father. He says, I'll tell you how, Abba. He said, I add more weight. And his father said, you add more weight? He goes, yes, I add the weight of our history with our Babas and Zaydas and the Jewish people who perished. I'm carrying them on my back.
Amazing.
And the ambassador said to me, Rabbi, that's what I do as an ambassador. I add extra weight on my shoulders, and it's the history of the Jewish people. Isn't that beautiful?
Most moving, beautiful, and accurate. There was the head of Mossad, Meir Dagan, a legendary in Tzahal. He was a general, and later he became like the head of the Mossad. And people said that in front of him on the wall, there was a picture of his grandfather beaten by Nazi. And when I, for a second, forget what is my job, I look at the picture and I know exactly what I have to do.
Oy. Do you have memories like that remind you?
I thought, listen, there is no day that I don't think about the fact that I'm very lucky to be in such a generation that
Yeah.
I have the merit to live like a free person, to have my country, to have my children growing in a free world, not experiencing anti-Semitism in firsthand. I mean, I talk like about like endangering your life on the when you leave home. Baruch Hashem, we still have this terrible gift of anti-Semitism, but it's very different. You have a country to protect you. You have an army. You have. It's a very different situation, and I don't forget it for a second. I don't
Rabbi,
forget.
I've asked you this question before, and I forget your answer. You walk to shul on Shabbat, and it's not that far, but you're outside and you're exposed to the world out there. Have you ever experienced anti-Semitism that way?
I must admit I didn't. Um, I didn't. I didn't. Um, I have to share with you an interesting story. Now it's Ramadan, and that's why Canada is such a different place. And I have like a neighbor that I don't know that well. He bought the house next to us a few years ago, and I come to the house. People outside Toronto will not understand what we are talking about, but like there is like high, tall snow around my house, and I see like a nice, neat path allowing me to go from the car to the staircase, and it was a neighbor who did it. It's Ramadan for him. He fasts all day long. And I think to myself, like, could this happen in Israel? I'm not sure. So it's nice. It's you talk about anti-Semitism. I actually see many, many times the opposite. I
Right.
see also people come to me and say, "We are with Israel." They see me. Apparently, it's quite obvious that I'm Jewish, and somehow maybe when they hear my accent, they know that I'm from Israel. But I hear from my students. I hear from people who do see that.
Very good. I also do, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show once again, and welcome to Torah in Real Time. There are moments in history when leadership is not ceremonial, it is existential. When uncertainty spreads with fear, when fear rises, when morale clarity feels obscured, the question is no longer who speaks the loudest, but who carries the deepest responsibility. Parshat Tetzaveh enters precisely at that point. Unlike dramatic narratives of plagues or revelations, Tetzaveh turns inward. It speaks of garments, of oil, of light, of the Kohen Gadol, Aaron, who is commanded to wear sacred clothing for glory and for splendor. Yet beneath the gold threads and precious stones lies something far more demanding. He must carry the names of the 12 tribes over his heart. Leadership, the Torah teaches, is not about prominence. It is about bearing people, their pain, their hope, their dignity, close to one's chest. The Parsha opens with a command to keep the menorah burning continually. Light is not self sustaining, it requires tending, it requires pure oil, it requires consistency. In times of crisis, moral leadership functions the same way. It is not reactive or impulsive, it is disciplined, steady, and luminous, even when the surrounding world can feel very, very dark. Surprisingly, Moses' name does not appear in the portion. The greatest prophet steps back, and the focus shifts to service rather than the personality. True leadership in moments of upheaval is not about the elevation of the self. It is about sustaining the light, maintaining sanctity, and holding a fractured people together. Tetzaveh reminds us when the world trembles, the answer is not loud or noise, it is steady or light. Leadership is not loudness, it is the disciplined commitment to carry a people on one's shoulder and keep the light burning, especially when history grows dark. Rabbi, I want to ask you a very basic question. I was on the phone with one of my Talmidim, people who come to my shir on Thursday night, and he said to me, "Oh, Avram, this is a very dry parsha." And we didn't go into any great length. I was getting home, but I said to him, I said, "This is not dry at all. It's actually quite fascinating." And I wanted to ask you that question. Many people, when they come to these parshiot about the Kohen Gadol, what he's supposed to wear, the menorah, Shemin Zayed, etc., they say, I'm just going to flip right through that. But I don't think you and I find it dry at all. Am I right?
I actually think it's quite fascinating to imagine how the beautiful garment will look like, how many Kohanim in the same robes and the same color were running from one place in Beit HaMikdash to another. Um, and I'll give you actually one example that might surprise you. Um, about this week's Parsha, sometimes I draw inspiration from seeing, I'm ashamed to say that, but we always talk honestly. Sometimes I see the Pope with his beautiful garments, and for the mass he has one, and for the other one when he go to public he had another one. And the in Latin, the Kohen, the Pope is actually the Magnum Papa.
Yes.
Magnum Papa in Latin means like the Kohen Gadol, right?
Yes.
Which I'm pretty sure that the Christians who lived, the first one lived in the time that they see the Kohanim, they see the Kohen Gadol. I'm sure that they took some of their memories, picture they had in mind, and they somehow gave it to the people who were able to buy beautiful clothing. It was not the Jews at the time. And when I see it, I say to myself, okay, forget all this Avodah Zarah and the cross and everything. But isn't it beautiful, this like clothing that brings so much glory and beauty and admiration?
Yes.
And I think, wow, I wish I will be Zoche one day to see the real Magnum Papa, the real Kohen Gadol with his beautiful clothing. It means something to me. And the same I have to tell you, like I remember when Queen Elizabeth passed away, I was drawn to all the ceremonies and all the protocols which was connected. Now, what do I have with the Queen? I mean, okay, Canada is part of the Commonwealth, but there's the ceremony and the beauty of the clothing that the people wear around. You can really understand. This is the only thing that you can picture when you read the Parsha of Tetzaveh, Lehavdil Elef Alfei Havdalot. What is the meaning of beauty in Avodat Hashem, in the world where you have people who are dressed in a certain way, and it creates a striking imagery in the eyes of the people who come to see it. And in Yom Kippur we say that there is a beautiful song about the mar'eh of Kohen Gadol. Ma ne'edar haya Kohen Gadol b'tzeito mikodesh hakodashim. It was like a spiritual experience to see him coming out from the Kodesh HaKodashim. So I believe that it was maybe the light on his face and the beautiful garment that he wear. I actually not only not appreciating the many details, when I read it, I try to imagine how it really looked like.
I remember my father, Zachreni Livracha, I should rest in peace, when he would come to our Passover, Pesach table, and he had the most beautiful kittel, Rabbi. And I remember as a youngster looking at him and having this sense of godliness surrounding him. It was very, very beautiful, very beautiful.
Yeah.
There is something fascinating that happens in this parsha, and it is that Moshe Rabbeinu is not mentioned. And really, since he was born, it's the only parsha where Moshe is not mentioned. It's discussed in great length. Why is he not mentioned, Rabbi?
I think that in order to understand, again, it's my perush. There are many other classic mefarshim, but the way I see it, remember that basically Moshe was supposed to be the Kohen. The plan A of God himself was to make him the spiritual leader of the Jewish people, not Aaron. It was after a long discussion that is well described in the first Parsha of Shmot that Moshe refused to take the leadership position for all kinds of reasons, to the point where at the end Hashem was angry with him. Vayicharaf Hashem b'Moshe. So we don't see on the spot what was the reaction of the anger or what was like the consequences of the anger of God. The Torah does not say a word. But I feel that this anger of God is going through the Parshiot until it comes to Tetzaveh. You didn't want to take this position, you are going to be completely removed. Even your name is not going to be mentioned there. And I feel that Parshat Tetzaveh is the fulfillment of the anger that Moshe Rabbeinu declined the leadership position that Hashem offered him. That's my take.
The rabbinical sages explain that the words of a righteous person carries power, even when spoken conditionally. And although God forgave Israel, some aspects of Moses' statement was fulfilled, though through omission of his name in one portion. At some point in time, Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Just erase my name from the Torah," right? And you don't
kill the people, erase my name. I'm not interested to be
right.
Like even the greatest person ever was born if you don't forgive the Jewish people, which is a great sign of a leader.
The Baal HaTurim's explanation is that the Parshat Tetzaveh often falls near the 7th of Adar, the date of Moses' passing. His name is hidden in the Parsha as a symbolic reflection of his physical absence from the world. During when Moshe Rabbeinu's Yortzeit comes around, are you cognizant of it? Do you think about it? Do you feel it?
Yes, absolutely. Zayin Be'adar became like a day. It's a kind of Yom Tov for the Chevra Kadisha. I don't know if you know, but Chevra Kadisha in Toronto, in other places, used to have this day as a very solemn day. Many of them are not eating the day. It's a day of Ta'anit. To commemorate the fact that the first or the greatest Chevra Kadisha was Hashem himself burying Moshe.
Oh, yes.
So it's a godly act to bury people. And therefore, the Zayin Be'adar is a day of especially carry meaning to the Chevra Kadisha. I was a few times invited to speak in front of Chevra Kadisha because usually they break the fast on Zayin Be'adar with a nice dinner. And I was invited at least twice to speak to the Chevra Kadisha of Toronto. Wonderful people. And, you don't know. I saw the faces before. I never connected them to Chevra Kadisha. And they will be called in the middle of the night, to arrange a funeral, to make sure that everything is taken care. One of the greatest features of the Jewish community, the Gmilut Chesed with the deceased, something that today, of course, is more organized, but throughout the generation, there were these holy people, Chevra Kadisha, that made sure that people get an honorable treatment from the moment they are born until they are buried back in the ground.
I have a dear friend who's part of a Chevra Kadisha, and I wrote an article about him for the Canadian Jewish News a number of years ago. And he walked me through exactly what happens when the Chevra Kadisha, when they meet one another and they have to go through their avodah, through the process of preparing the body. And I just will tell you one thing, that at the end of it, they ask for mechila,
right,
from the body, because they may have done something to expose the body inappropriately. Rabbi, I was just wondering, you're a Kohen, and I think in my mind, there's many benefits to being a Kohen. The idea that you go up and you duchen on the holidays, to me, is a beautiful thing. But is it also unfortunate that you cannot be part of the Chevra
Yes,
Kadisha?
yes. I think that I would like to be a part of the Chevra Kadisha. That's why when they asked me to come, I said, "Wow, I thank you so much,"
Yeah, right,
because
right.
I think, like, this is the only way I can be part
Yeah,
of the Chevra Kadisha,
yeah,
right? Um, but yes, it's two issues. Sometimes I feel that I could be kind of a help when people are dying. And according to the Jewish law, when a person is very, very close to the moment he passed away, the Kohanim has to leave the room. Because once he passed away, um, a Kohen cannot be under the same roof with a deceased person. And I feel many, many times that I could be kind of a help uh, to the family or to dying people in the last moments, and I cannot do it. And I
Hmm.
accept, my role in the world as a Kohen. God knows what he does, and if he made me a Kohen, I will take it with
Hmm.
pride.
It's so interesting. Rabbi, one of the things that's discussed in the parsha is the menorah and the continual flame. Now, everybody who's been in shul knows that there is a ner tamid in shul. I'm wondering, what is the significance of the ongoing flame? Why can it not go out?
I think that's the secret of life. Our life, from Jewish perspective, is not like a point that eventually like create kind of sequence. Every moment in our life is a moment of potential, is a moment that has to be fulfilled with content, with purpose. And the menorah just remind us that it's not like you go to Shachrit, you go to Mincha, you go to Ma'ariv, you do some mitzvot along the way. Your life has to be illuminated every moment. Even when you are working or you are doing secular things, it can be uplifted. And I think that's a great message of the menorah. And that's why until this very day, every shul has this like ner tamid. And many people, by the way, in their home, they try to have a ner tamid. They will always light for a tzaddik or a yortzeit or something like this. Um, one of the things that I do remember from my father before he passed away, he made sure that we know where he left the list for his grandparents and uncles when they passed away to make sure that we light a candle in their memory. It was very important for him. Um, so I do believe that it's a reminder that we have to infuse purpose and meaning to our life every single moment.
Yeah, I remember when I was a child and I would go into my father's shul, Beth Jacob in Kitchener, and it would be very dark in the shul because the service was over. And I remember looking at the Ner Tamid and I was just mesmerized by it. It was
Yeah,
very
there is
beautiful.
some magic in it, isn't it? Like it's always there.
It's
Like this
very, very
little
beautiful.
flame, which carries much more meanings than the little flame.
I think there's a Ner Tamid at the Knesset. Am I correct?
Maybe, I don't know.
In the front area. Rabbi, the Kohen Gadol carries the names of the 12 tribes on his shoulders and over his
On,
heart. They
on,
say.
on yeah, first plate, yeah.
What's the difference between carrying a people on one's shoulder versus carrying them on one's heart?
Eh, Thinking and caring. That's basically the message. The Kohen Gadol has two roles to inspire the heart of the people. He has to remember that his main job is not just to be like, in the limelight and to everyone look at him at Yom Kippur when he left the Beit HaMikdash. And according to Chazal, he arrived to his home only around midnight. So
Yes.
people stopped him and they fought to just get a glimpse or maybe to give you a handshake or something. Um, in order to inspire, your heart has to be inspired. And I believe that this is the choshen, the breastplate. But a Kohen also, a real Kohen, has to bear the burden of the community, of the nation. He has to know how every single of the member in the community sometimes suffers, need support, need help. And these are the shoulders we carry. In the tzabah, you have nesiat alunka. You take the alunka, the stretcher, and trust me, after 1 hour, you will know exactly what does that mean. Like having on your shoulder the weight of another person, and it's your responsibility. So the Kohanim, the Rabbanim, the educators, they need a good heart, and they also need like wide, strong shoulders.
It's interesting. Your point makes me think of two people. The first person I think of is my father. And once again, when we were walking home on Shabbat, people would always honk, because my father was very well known in the Jewish community and the non-Jewish community. And I would often ask my father, who are those people? And he would say, I have absolutely no idea. But he would wave and say, Shalom, how are you?
That's very interesting, because I have the same experience many, many times on Shabbat. Like I go with my children or my wife, she said, who is it? So I said, I have no idea. And she said, what? It looks like your friend. Like you wave to him and you smile to him and
Yes.
you ask him how is he doing. I said, that's every rabbi should do. Like, apparently he knows me. I see like thousands of people. Sometimes they cannot put the name to the face. But we all Jews, we should be nice to each other.
No. The other person I think of is Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zachareni Livracha. I was at Chabad a number of times at 770 in New York, and you would see the Rebbe walking to 770 from his house on President Street. And what was beautiful about him was he would say hello to people, but he was so nice to little children. I remember seeing that. He would stop and he would look at the children playing, and he would speak to them in the most beautiful way. That's what your point reminds me of.
So you had the big scoop to see the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I never saw him.
I was actually at 770 when the Rebbe had a heart attack.
Oh.
But that was pandemonium.
But I have to tell you something very interesting about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I'm not a Lubavitcher in any way or shape. But, rabbis also sometimes need inspiration. You know what I do when I need inspiration? Mm-hmm. I go to the library of Chabad, I think it's called JEM or something like this, and look on videos of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Yeah. And some of them are so inspiring. You see like a leader. Really, I see him like the Kohen Gadol of the Jewish people, the way he treats the people come to him, the strength of his conviction. It happened to me only one time. I saw a movie of the Lubavitcher Rebbe at the time that his father-in-law, who was the previous Rebbe of Lubavitch, got the American citizenship. It was in the house, like actually he did not go to the office to get his citizenship. The office came to the house of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was his son-in-law, stood next to him. I have to tell you, you look at these two people in the eyes. It was the only time in my life I was seeing it alone. I stood up in reverence.
Did you?
Like they did not see me. They were both dead. And it was like just a clip. But you know what? Something was moved inside me to the point that I felt that I have to stand up.
How interesting is that? The Rebbe also had beautiful, beautiful sky blue eyes. And God gave him the gift of those eyes. They were riveting, absolutely riveting eyes. Rabbi, it's a very, very interesting point I want to bring forward. The golden altar of incense, it represents a private sort of daily ritual inside the Mishkan, the tabernacle. What role do quiet, unseen acts play in sustaining a nation?
So number one, let's go to the simple pshat. Some of the Rishonim say that the whole idea of the good smell from the Ktoret and Mizbeach Hadav was because this was like kind of metaher avir. There was a bad smell from the korbanot, from the fire outside of the Mizbeach. So in order to make the Heichal, where the Shulchan was, when the menorah was, where the Aron was, they needed a good smell to repel the bad smell that came naturally from other works in the Mishkan. You have to remember the Mishkan was a place with lots of blood, like rivers of blood. Sometimes so many korbanot, and I'm sure that the smell was a little bit harsh. So this is on the simplest shot, but obviously, um, you know, let's take the Havdalah, for example. What we are doing with the Havdalah, we have like wine, we have besamim to smell, we have the light. And think about it like about the Mishkan. We have the menorah, the fire, the light, the candle. We have the ktoret, the besamim. I think that you want to associate the worship of God with pleasant feelings.
Mhm.
Because for many, many people, it's just a burden. It's just something that like requires you to be very careful, especially in Beit HaMikdash, that every mistake can carry very heavy consequences. You don't want to leave people only with a feeling of burden and fear and like just let me go back to my business. It had to be like a pleasant experience. The light, the psamim, the ktoret, the aesthetic of the Mishkan that we read this week. There was something very aesthetic about visiting Beit HaMikdash, and I think it was part of the package. Beit HaMikdash is not a place that demand from you, just put burden on you. It's a place where you can really enjoy physically from the more spiritual things, the sight, the smell, the light. So that's the way I understand the whole avodah of the Ktoret and Mizbeach HaZahav.
I was just thinking about the smells in shul today, and what came to mind was the kiddush, the cholent. But more so, to be more serious about it, there's an idea in the Torah of reach nechoach l'Hashem.
Yeah.
And people often say, they go, well, what do you mean a sweet smell, a beautiful smell to God? But that was important, right? It's godly, these beautiful smells.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite parts of Motzei Shabbos, like to have the good smell that you start the week well.
Rabbi, I am always blown away when I walk through a forest or an area where there are flowers. I was in Prince Edward Island, and there's just almost like miles and miles of these stunning, gorgeous flowers. And the smell which emanated from those flowers was so beautiful. And I kept thinking to myself, God is so interesting in his creativity to the extent that he made these plants that they would have this beautiful fragrance and give us great joy, right?
That's why we have a bracha on besamim. Absolutely. Borei minei besamim. We acknowledge the fact that God created the world around us beautiful in its aesthetic, in its the way even it smells. I agree. Yeah.
Rabbi, they're one of the essence, one of the sort of the pillars that this parsha stands on is the concept of leadership, and we talked about that in the beginning in our introduction. I just want to go through a list of leaders throughout our own history, just to highlight some of the greatness that we have either learned about or been privy to. Moses, of course, is one of them. Rabbi Akiva, his faith under Roman persecution. Maimonides brought clarity amid confusion to the Jewish people. Theodor Herzl, an anomaly of a human being, who really was the visionary towards modern-day Israel. And, of course, Golda Meir, her resolve in wartime. Some other Israelis that we should speak about when we talk about Giborim. David Ben-Gurion, of course, the first prime minister of Israel, Menachem Begin, who was actually called the Gibor, Yitzhak Rabin, and today Yonatan Netanyahu, even though some people are critical of course, what obviously October 7th, many people are, the fact of the matter, he's been an amazing war prime minister. In the world in which
we have to mention that because this is incredible what happened yesterday in Israel when the prime minister of India
Yes.
India has more than billion people.
Yes.
He came to Israel and he was like amazed by what he saw.
Yeah.
Not only like the politics, but one of the places I read this morning that Netanyahu took Modi is to a new company that is doing dairy, not coming from cows, not from animals.
Mhm.
Like they managed to imitate the protein of milk in such a way that you cannot see that this is not a real cheese, this is not real milk. Um, Now think about Israel, a place of less than 10 million people. Start to feed the world, with things that don't require animals to produce anymore. Just think about what does that mean.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
I don't know if we can say Zavat Chalav Udvash in the future. We'll have to see. Some secular leaders that have shown greatness at particular times. Winston Churchill steadied Britain and much of the world during World War II. Franklin Roosevelt guided the United States through depression and war. And Nelson Mandela, who prevented civil conflict in post-apartheid South Africa. Any other leaders come to mind for you, Rabbi?
Only leader that I read, about in the past, I think about the kings of Israel, the kings of Judah. I always think about how David looked like. Problem is the moment I was in Florence, Firenze, in Italian, and you see this magnificent work of David. Oh, what a human achievement. So somehow it stuck into your mind that that's how King David looked like, and I'm sure it wasn't like this. But I try to imagine the power and the gentleness and the Torah and the responsibility that he had. People that I remember from my own life, like great leaders, Begin was certainly something that I like to listen to his. Again, sometimes I go to YouTube to listen to Begin. I love the way he spoke, his face, his expression. This is a lesson to everyone who want to be orator. Not me, but it's nice to see. It's a chavaya, it's an experience. Other people, Benny Gantz. Benny Gantz, beautiful person, very tall, very impressive. And remember, there is nothing wrong about it. Even in Shaul, the Bible mentioned the fact that he was outstanding in his beauty and his face, and he was tall and impressive. Yeah, I saw some people, especially in the army, people who their leadership was clear, like on their face. You saw them, and yeah, they were impressive.
You can tell a great leader from miles away. There's one fellow whom I interviewed recently near Amitai. He's a major now in the reserves. When he left the army, he started, I mentioned this before on the show, Rimon Farms in the Negev. And
Yeah,
that's, you know the
I know the
precursor
place,
to
yeah,
Rimon
of
Farm.
course.
And that it's a farm that's set up to help people with post-traumatic stress, not only Chayalim Chayalot, but also kids from bad families or the bad streets of Tel Aviv, let's say. And whenever I speak to him, Rabbi, I always am aware of the fact that here's a great leader. Here is a great leader. The way he speaks. Also, he's has an incredible sense of humor. He's very, very funny. I find great leaders often are very, very funny, and just a very special man.
Good.
Rabbi, I want to conclude Torah in real time with a poem from AI and Parshat Tetzaveh. It's called Steady or Light. There are moments in history when leadership is not ceremonial, it is existential. When fear rises and clarity blurs, the question is no longer who speaks the loudest, but who carries the deepest responsibility. Parshat Tetzaveh enters precisely there. It does not thunder, it turns inward. It speaks of oil, of garments, of light. Aaron, the Kohen Gadol, is clothed for glory and for splendor. Yet beneath the gold threads, he bears something heavier, 12 names resting over his heart. Leadership is not prominence, it is presence. It is carrying a people on your shoulders and holding them close to your chest. The Parsha opens with crushed olive oil for a flame that must burn continually. Light is not self-sustaining. It requires tending. It requires consistency. In times of crisis, moral leadership is the same. Steady, disciplined, luminous, even when the world grows dark. Each tribe shines in its own stone. Unity does not erase difference, it gathers it. And Moses, his name is absent. After offering himself for the sake of his people, he steps back. And you shall command, even unnamed, he leads. The greatest leaders do not seek recognition. They sustain the flame. Tetzaveh reminds us, when the world trembles, the answer is not louder noise, it is steadier light. And you know, Rabbi, this makes me think about after October 7th, when Israel went to war in Gaza with Hamas, with the Houthis, with Iran. Israeli leadership was pretty much solid. They always gave me the sense, or mostly gave me the sense, that we were on the right path and that we would be victorious. Do you have that same sense, that same feeling?
I did not wait for the leaders. I knew that Israel must come victorious from the whole story. And Baruch Hashem, the pain is a terrible one. We lost so many people and soldiers afterward. And still, the danger is looming. Is not over yet. But think about the situation. Hezbollah is beaten. Syria is a very different place. The Iran, the immediate threat was removed. Israel today is considered to be kind of empire. If you like it or not, it doesn't make a difference. But from a country that faced existential threat, like to emerge after 2 and something years in a completely different place, Yad Hashem, I'm telling you, it's the hand of God hovering over our heads. We have to recognize it.
As I mentioned before, the ambassador, Israel's ambassador to the United States, Michael Yechiel Leiter, he said, Rabbi, in the context of what you're speaking of, he said, never have we seen a generation of young people fight the way our Chayalim and Chayalot have fought. He said some of them, family members, have fathers, have given 700-800 days of their life to reserves. And he says it's unprecedented. He says it's magnificent.
I want to tell you, and I would highly encourage everyone who see our interview. Yesterday, my wife showed me a clip taken from the one of the Israeli channels, I think Channel 12. She got it on her Facebook. One of her students, a former Torontonian, I think his name is Isaacovich, a wonderful boy. He went to Orchaim, then he went to Yeshivat HaKotel, and he's going to be recruited in a very short time. I also have a student who I actually met in the last Shabbaton. My former student, Ari Berger, is also went to Yeshivat HaKotel. He's drafted to the army in a short time. Avrum, this is a new generation. These people, they speak about Israel, about their Jewish identity with a pride I never saw anything before. Mm-hmm. And you might think, like after October 7th, that people will be completely down. You have to hear that. You have to hear the interview with this boy. It's just make you so proud that the young generation is taking over, and they come with such a motivation and emunah in their heart. Wow, unbelievable. So hopefully I will download it and I will send it to you. I think it's something that worth watching.
I'm Yisrael Chai, proud to be a Jew. Rabbi and I want to thank everybody for watching and for listening. We're very grateful that you have. If you have any questions, you'll find our email at the bottom of the screen. But until we meet again, have a beautiful Shabbat and a beautiful Purim. And like my mother used to say, God bless her soul, Sei gesund. Go in good health.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.